Alright, let's draw my life. I'm gonna try to cut out some big chunks here, else I'm gonna run out of ink. I'm like the oldest person on YouTube, except for maybe Zay Frank. He's pretty old. I grew up in Springfield, Virginia, which is right outside of Washington, D.C. Now that means in 20 minutes in this direction, you've got rich snobs who are like, my father's a congressman. In 20 minutes in this direction, you had total rednecks. My father's my husband. My parents are John and Margaret, but for some reason they go by Bill and Ola. I don't know why. I think they might be spies. My brother and sister are Steve and Dawn, respectively. I'm the youngest, which makes them about 100 years old. Sometimes people ask me, hey, where'd you get your sense of humor? One of the big reasons is that all of these people are really funny. I had to compete for laughs, and you had to have good material in this household. I grew up in a tough room, basically. As a kid, I loved music, and it only took me 18 years to learn the guitar. Growing up, I was a huge fan of the Washington Redskins, and I went to Robert E. Lee High School, and wow, that all sounds really racist. I mean, I went to Ulysses S. Grant High School and was a big fan of the Washington Native Americans whose land we took and they named our crappy sports teams after. I loved football, which I played but was terrible at. I hated school, and I was even worse at that. I just could not focus. Every day I'd sit in the classroom and I would just daydream of a world with no school. I would try to listen, but the movies that were playing inside my head were always way more interesting than anything my teacher ever had to say. I wasn't really cool, I wasn't really good at sports, I wasn't a tough guy, and I wasn't even smart enough to be a good nerd. When you don't fit in, you tend to develop a sense of humor. Or a drug habit. Luckily for me, it was the former. By the time I got to the 6th grade, I realized I had a talent for mimicry. I was obsessed with Pee Wee Herman and could do a really good impression of him. Hey look, I'm Mark's Dragon Pee-wee! Doing my impression of Pee-wee was my first experience of making an entire room full of people laugh. And that included my teacher. I was officially the class clown. I had a title. The funny guy routine wasn't always embraced by my teachers, though. I once had a history teacher call my dad at home to complain that I wouldn't stop mimicking him. He would say, okay, class, take out your textbooks. And I would go, okay, class, take out your textbooks. I guess I never realized I was doing it out loud. That must have annoyed the shit out of him. Sorry, Mr. Van Meter. You know, I may have gotten a D in your class, but now I get paid to make silly voices, so I want to thank you for the early practice. When I managed to squeak by and graduate high school, the only things I knew how to do were play the guitar and make people laugh. I decided to go to acting school in New York City. I got kicked out after a year for not acting good, I guess. That did a lot for my self-esteem. I started taking private classes with a woman named Jackie Bartone. To say she cursed like a sailor would be insulting to sailors. She taught me how to act good, and the most important thing she did for me was to convince me to go to therapy. In therapy, I learned to hate myself less. I highly recommend it to everyone. Since I was terrible at auditioning, I figured the only way I was ever going to get any work was to write it for myself. So I joined a sketch comedy group and started a musical duo with my friend Rob Gordon. This was way before YouTube. I was also part of a fake variety sketch comedy show called Giant Tuesday Night of Amazing Inventions and Also There's a Game. That's the actual title. It was at this time that I met two of my best friends, Todd Womack and Brian Olson. They were both hilarious comedians who also did silly voices and impressions. I wrote and performed a lot of stuff with those guys. I also met my wife Anastasia around this time. She came to one of my shows and saw me performing the Karate Kid musical and fell in love with me instantly. We've been together for 10 years and have been married for 3. Being funny gets you chicks. Eventually, the comedy duo and the show with the long name fizzled out, and I was alone doing stand-up trying to figure out what the hell to do with my life. A day I was working as a bellman. I had no skills other than making people laugh, and I couldn't seem to ever make any real money doing that. I thought I was going to end up dying at that hotel. Then in 2007, a comedian friend of mine, Rusty Ward, called me and said, oh, hey, I'm making videos for a YouTube channel run by my friend Ben Rellis. It's called Barely Political. It's the guys who did I Got a Crush on Obama. I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of it. I hadn't, but I looked it up. It was pretty good. Anyway, Rusty asked me if I could come in and do some voiceover work for a sketch. I did some impressions and I helped him write it. That video was uploaded on December 7th, 2007. It was my first Barely Political video. You know, I just looked up this video and I didn't know this, but it is one of the least liked Barely Political videos of all time. Wow. Sometimes it's not good to look back, kids. After I did that video, I made it my mission to work for Barely Political. I sent them every idea I had for sketches, songs, anything. And they seemed to like my ideas, and they needed content. So they hired me full-time, and I was able to quit the crappy hotel job. 2009 was a big year. For one, I got married, and I started my own series called The Key of Awesome. It's been a hell of a ride making the KOA. I've been able to work with my favorite band, Weezer.
And I got to meet Pee-wee Herman. The real Pee-wee. Click here for that.
As the Key of Awesome grew in popularity, I was able to bring on my old comedy friends Brian and Todd as writers/performers.
My name's Brian Olsen. I grew up in Akron,
no,
Ohio.
guys, get out of here. This is mine. Make your own thing.
God, man.
I was also able to bring my wife in as a production coordinator, and sometimes I make her sing. You know, sometimes people ask me if I'm rich from YouTube, and I say, not really. Then I blow my nose with a $100 bill, but it's fake. Let's just say I make a very decent living doing what I love, and I get to work with the person I love the most in the world.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
Oh, not you, Todd. I meant Stasia. You're nice, too.
Oh, yeah,
It's just,
cool.
I guess I love you. I don't really know where I'd be if it weren't for YouTube. I don't really like to think about it. I'd probably still be at the hotel. Or in jail for assaulting someone with their own luggage. That's pretty much been my life so far. Thanks for watching. I hope you keep watching. And if you see me in public, come over and say hi. I love that shit. Peace.